So does everybody have a pen and paper first? Everybody in the room? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Anybody who doesn't have pen and paper, please raise your hand. Everybody's got it. Okay. So I want you to copy down this diagram. Hopefully with better artistry than mine. I'm an engineer, not an artist. Okay, so this is the 3 pillars of wealth. Businesses, the markets, and real estate. Without all 3 of them, this school would not be very functional. So I want you to take a couple quick minutes, write down as a percentage of your investment capital you would like in all 3 of them. You're going to have how many minutes? A few. That means 2.5. Keep it on your toes. So 2.5 minutes starting now. Is everybody getting close to finish? Just want to check in. Who needs more time? Like, okay. Everybody's good. Okay, great. I want everybody to grab a partner, and I want you to pick an A and a B partner. So I want you to do that now. Pick a partner beside you. If you don't have a partner, please stand up. Go to the back of the room and pair it with somebody else if there's an uneven number. Does that make sense? Yeah, if you can't find a partner, we're going to do these activities really quick. We're going to do them how fast? Quick. Beautiful. If there's an odd number, if one of the team can work with Giovanni.
Your partner? There you go.
Beautiful. Does everybody have a partner now? Does anybody not have a partner by show of hands? Beautiful. We have our A's and our B's picked out. Does everybody have an A and a B partner? Hey, okay, everybody, one thing I forgot in the beginning with the housekeeping, if I raise my left hand and not speak, I want everybody to be quiet. Let's try that now. Beautiful. So does everybody have an A and B partner picked out? Yes? Okay, great. So where are my A's? Hands up. Great. Where are my B's? Hands up. Beautiful. So A, I want you to put your finger to the sky, like this. Point at yourself. Point at B. Point at yourself. Point at B. B's are going to go first. So I want you to share with your partner what your percentages were and a little bit quick reasons of what you think, well, the reasons why you pick those percentages. Does that make sense? Okay, B's off you go. You got 2 minutes.
I really believe in having some in the markets, especially
Beautiful. Thank your partner, and give each other a big round of applause. Okay, now what I want everybody to do is get up out of their seats. All right, we're going to spin around 3 times to the left, like this. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Now to the right 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Give someone a high five and say, real estate's awesome.
Real estate's awesome.
Please take your seats. Those are going to have fun today. Okay, so who would like to share? Yes. Please raise your hand. We'll have to stand up. Volunteer or voluntold, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Stand up.
Sure, I can share.
Please, what's your name?
Yeah, my name is Ram.
Everybody say hello.
Hello.
Great.
All right, so my 3 categories, obviously business, markets, and real estate. I have chosen as business as 30%,
Okay.
markets as 25%, and real estate as the remaining 45%.
Excellent.
So it's diversified as A, but it's also, and I was just telling Dave a little earlier, that my plan here is to shift a little bit more from real estate to business. But I think I have 65% overall right now in real estate, and I feel like it's a little too much. And I believe in having some type of market investment, even though it's very time intensive. I'm not looking at it from a time intensive point of view. I'm looking at it as a diversification point of view, set it and forget it type of strategy. And I'm concentrating my time on real estate itself, as well as going into business.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Please give him a big round of applause. Who else would like to share? Yes, Bill, please stand up.
So I said 40 business. 40
Everybody say hi, Gil.
Hi, Gil.
I said 40 business, 40 real estate, and 20 market. And personally, even 20 market is uncomfortable for me because I've had bad money managers who cost me money. Market, I can't control. I can do a better job in real estate. I can work harder in business. So, and I like real estate and I like business, and my experience with market is.
Thank you very much. If you're uncomfortable, you're growing. Give him a big round of applause. Okay, one more real quick. Stand up.
So I have
What and your name is?
Chris.
Everybody say hi, Chris.
So I have 50% for business, 25 for market, and 25 for real estate. The reason being, what you were talking about is capital that you have to invest, right? So if you said if you have real estate, it takes slow to grow very rich. Sometimes you want to take some of the risks in there, so you want to do market that is liquid. It goes up really fast, it goes down really fast. So if you have 25 for market and you're lucky, you make something out of it, then you have some more funds to put into the real estate and go into the real estate. And your business is your passion, so your business has to have the most of the capital. So you put more into your passion, that way you grow as a passion grows.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Give him a big round of applause. Was that fun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, back to low money down, no money in real estate. So the best part of this for the homeowner is you take over all the liability from them, all the expenses for the property from day one. And from there, you agree to a price today that you're going to pay to that homeowner, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, sometime in the future. And you have a period of time, usually 1 year to 5 years, where you can pay that amount you agree with Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner out at any given time. No penalty and no extra charges. So you can close the deal at any time during that term. And the best part about this is no banks, no credit check, no income verification, and no 20% down. You can even do this strategy with being unemployed. Now, who thinks that sounds awesome by show of hands?
Yeah.
No more messing with the banks. They're a necessary part of the business, but if you can avoid them, then you can get a lot of scale. So the amount of capital you need to close one of these deals on agreement for sale is the strategy I'm speaking about here is completely dependent upon the situation of Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. That sometimes, depending on what their situation is, they might be willing to just walk away from the property, wash their hands of it, forget it ever happened. They're happy they know it's sold at some point during that term you agree, and they don't even need any money in their pocket. That's how you can do this with zero down. Other than legal fees, we can't avoid the lawyer because it's a land title process, it is a process, but no money down to actually buy the house itself. And the current guideline we work with the homeowners is 25% of the equity goes to them. I mean, they put a big down payment in, they paid payments for a year, and that's something came up in their lives. So we usually take 25% and keep that in the homeowner's hands, and we'll give them sometimes part of that up front, part of it at the end when we close the deal, and then we keep 75% as the company. Now, seller psychology is a huge factor here, and like I said, the difference between Edmonton market and Calgary market, one of the main things is that we're very hold it close to the chest, white-collar folks here in Calgary, you know, engineers and geologists and people like that. When they get laid off, they have more options. They have a longer runway before the trouble gets really severe. So we found traditionally in Calgary, people will call us and say, "Can you help me?" at the 11th hour, when they've racked up $60,000 in arrears and there's no more equity in the house and we just can't do anything to help them. In contrast, in Edmonton, very different mentality. Blue collar, more majority population, when they get in trouble, typically they're in trouble worse, and they know they're not going to be able to pay the debts off. So when you talk to those homeowners, 70% in our experience, they'll say, "Hey, just help me. I want to avoid foreclosure. I want to not have damaged credit. I'm just going to go rent for a while and figure my situation out." So it's a lot easier to make deals with them here. And what we always try to do with this 25%, 75% split is always help that homeowner out. What we like to do is always create the win-win solution for the homeowner. We're going to pay for their moving truck, at least, and give them groceries and a fridge. A lot of these people have families, and they've had a hard time. And we want to help them out as much as we possibly can. And sometimes we'll give them first and last month's rent as well, in addition to these things, depending on the margin of the deal. We want to give them as much help as possible so they can move forward in a positive direction. Who likes the sound of that? Okay, fantastic. So that's dependent on how much you can give them to be able to have them move out of the house and have you be able to go in there and do what your strategy is. So we're currently seeing a lot of properties where you can put in between $10,000 and $25,000 to be able to get into the house and close the deal with the homeowner. Now, sometimes people think that maybe we're stealing Granny's house, or we're buying a property so cheap from somebody. Here's the reality, and I want to shift your mindset a little bit, that even if you're taking the house over for what they owe, saving them from the foreclosure, and saving their credit, and helping them avoid all those consequences is a legitimate service. That what you're doing is helping people, even if they're not getting any equity, because there may not be much equity there after you're able to operate your business model, but you're helping them out of that situation. So know that you're still creating a win for them in that circumstance. So, there's a question?
Yeah, can you give me an example? I'm trying to wrap my head around this and I'm not very clear. So let's say I'm losing my house, I'm on the foreclosure, you come in, you give me 25 down, do you take
25% of the equity that's in the deal.
Do you take over my loan or do you?
Correct. Yeah, we take over all the expenses, all the liabilities, all the payments, they stop.
So then you would go to TD Bank and you work on a deal with them to discharge you my loan? Like I'm trying to understand.
It stays, so what happens is it stays a TD, right? So the old owner stays on title. They stay, the mortgage stays in stays in their name. So you're taking over all the liabilities, but you're not going on title, which is why you don't have to qualify with the bank.
Okay.
And the reason why sometimes it's between $10,000 and $25,000, great question, is that sometimes they missed a couple payments with TD. So you'll go to TD and say, "Listen, we're going to pay the back payments, we're going to bring the loan current." All the bank wants is the interest to get coming through the door and the payments to be made. So then you can bring that loan current, and now you have control of the property, and you just pay the payments on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner.
So then you would have a contract with them through a lawyer?
Correct. That's the agreement for sale contract. Yeah. We're not going to get into that level of detail today, but that's what's happening. The bleeding stops, their payments stop from day one, even if it's vacant. A lot of these houses are vacant. Is they're out of town owners and things like that, and it's costing them money every month, and they're already in trouble. So even if we don't have a tenant or anything, the day we take possession, the day we get the keys, we take over all the payments. Every dime piece to go into that house. Does that make sense? Great. Thank you very much for your question. Give a round of applause. So our current structure is our investors are putting in the capital to close the deals. And we're doing all the work. we're going out there and finding them, we're doing the due diligence, we're gonna pay the holding costs during the period of time, the mortgage, so we're gonna take care of that on our side of the fence. We're gonna take care of any renovations that need to be done, and we're talking about two things. Flooring if it's damaged, and paint if it's ugly. That's all we're gonna do in the house, because what we're doing is we're finding situations where these properties have equity in them, and they suffer from poor marketing, poor showing appeal. Because in this marketplace, and Mike will attest to this, that you can't sell a house with dishes stacked up the ceiling and kids' clothes everywhere. If you're trying to show that thing in this buyer's market, it's just not going to sell. Or it's not going to sell. So that's the type of house we're looking for. And we also are going to do all the due diligence to make sure that it's profitable and we can get out of that property in 1 to 3 months. We're seeing about 6 to 9 leads a week in this strategy in Edmonton mostly. We are starting to see some here in Calgary. Usually about 2 to 4 of them are going to turn into deals. So we're going to look through a lot of properties, about 30 to 36, sometimes more. This is just Edmonton. So when you add Calgary to this, it's going to be a lot more. We're going to do our due diligence on 50 plus deals in a month and figure out which ones are worthwhile doing these deals. So who has the time in this room to look at 50, 60 deals a month? Show of hands. 2 of you. Awesome. You're my get your hands dirty folks. Love it. So our target property is something that needs to be cleaned, staged, and professionally marketed. It's that house with the dishes stacked up. It's just not going to sell the way it is. So we take control of that property. Some of these people, they've got their Uncle Bob showing it twice to homeowners in a week. Again, in this buyer's market, if somebody calls up your ad and says, I want to see that house. Oh, well, you're going to have to wait till Friday. But I'm going to go look elsewhere. There's just too much inventory out there for a buyer in this market to put up with that type of abuse. Does that make sense? Yeah. Great. So what we do then is we make a very simple, I like to keep things simple wherever possible, 50-50 joint venture. The investor's putting in the capital, we're putting in any additional capital after getting the property under contract from Mr. versus homeowner, and then we take care of doing all the work. One side's the money, one side's doing all the work. Make sense? We like to keep that simple, easy to understand. So, who would be interested to learn more about how this process works for our investors that are currently doing it by show of hands? Fantastic. So there's going to be a form passed out later on. I want you to check that box that says agreement for sale. So I've done this in Calgary many times before. I've done this many times over the years. It's one of my favorite acquisition strategies actually, is agreement for sale. Because you can get scale. And it's easy to wholesale it. Who's interested in wholesale by show of hands? Okay, great. Well, again, we want to see all those opportunities. We could be your buyer. We could be your cash buyer. But in this marketplace here, because the homeowners hold it very close to the chest, they wait far too long, what happens is, it's typically $50,000 on average you need to put into a property in Calgary to get it to work, to pay off their back payments, to pay their taxes, to pay their moving truck and all these things. So it's a way higher capital requirement to be able to get into a property in Calgary under this context. And we are starting to see them through Mr. Sherrard here. They typically take a little bit more cash. But that's why we're looking at Edmonton again. You have to look at diversity because we can do it for about half the cash, between $10,000 to $25,000. We'd like to get 2 deals done with the same amount of money by show of hands. Give someone a high five and say, that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
Okay, so we got another activity. Get your pens and paper out. I want you to think of how many properties could you do if you had to use $12,500 for each Mr. and Mrs. homeowner, so each property. You follow so far? So it takes $12,500 for each deal. You started with a budget of $150,000. Recognize that number from before? That's our one project typical, the traditional way. So you've got $150K to start with. You need $12,500 per house. Okay? And then if you get an average profit for each one of those deals of $30,000, and that's split 50-50, remember, between the company and you. So let me write this down. So 12.5, okay, for the house. 150K, okay, budget. You're going to make $30K per deal. You make 30K per deal, and I want you to calculate your ROI. So that 30K split it to you, remember. I'm going to give you just 2 minutes. How many minutes? 2. Work that out in your calculators, or in your head if you're mathematically inclined. 2 minutes, 30 now. We'll go over the numbers. That's divided by 2. Yeah. Are we almost done? Needs more time? Show of hands. Oh, got it? Great. So here's the numbers. We've got a 150K budget. So you divide that by 12.5 per house, you get 12 deals, 30K a piece, that's 360K. Divide that by 2, split between you and your JV. $180,000 in profit. You started with 150. What you got? 120% ROI. Now, that's a lot of deals in a year. Let's be fair. But let's say you did half of that. Would you be happy? A show of hands? 6 deals in a year? That is completely achievable because we've developed a system where we're getting out of these properties in 1 to 3 months. And here's why. Because it's professionally marketed, professionally staged, it stands out in the marketplace, and we're not selling them at full tilt boogie market price. Okay? We're selling them below market price.
You know,
So
like
that
would it be like at a fire sale type price, like 90% of whatever the house would have been worth before?
As low as we can get to get it moved fast,
Yeah.
and whatever that number happens to be. So we're going to put it up, and we're going to drop it every week until we get it up. And we're looking for 20 to 40K margin, so we can do that. Make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for your question. All right. So now, the last topic, Texas turnkey system. So I'm going to roll through this really quick because we've got a couple more activities. Sound good? Ready to learn to listen faster?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So this is an auction strategy. We're buying properties in the state of Texas for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. We're selling them for 40 to 80 cents on the dollar. And often, most properties don't even need any renovations. There are 4,000 foreclosures in just one of the markets we do business in. That's Houston, the highest population, operating in the Texas Triangle. Houston, Dallas, San Antonio primarily, but in other markets as well. Because again, one market might be down, another market might be up. So there's 4,000 foreclosures in just one of the markets we do business in every month. So there's multiple ways in the US, unlike Canada, where they go up to auction fast. They go up to auction how? Because of all these reasons. One of the major acquisition strategies, I would say about 70% of what we do, is because of tax deeds. So what happens in the US, if you don't pay your property taxes, they're also one of the highest in the US. Percentage-wise, about 3% of the property value typically. So it's expensive. But they also have a big population support. So they have a lot of services they have to pay for it. Just due to density, it makes sense. So if your property taxes are arrears for about 2 years in the state of Texas, the county's going to foreclose on you, they're going to auction your darn house. And what happens there is they take the back taxes owing, and that's the starting bid. And they get bid up from there. So you could be getting a $100,000 property where starting bid is $10,000, $12,000. So this is how strategically we can get those properties on a consistent basis for 20 cents and 30 cents on the dollar. We typically would never go over 40. That's the business model. And also second liens. Not very common in Canada where a second mortgage holder will auction that note up. They'll sell that mortgage because they're in a dangerous place, they want to get out, they want to find an investor like me or you to walk into that deal and say, I'm going to take the first mortgage current and then I'm going to pay the second mortgage and then lose it all. Does that make sense? And because of that, we can negotiate with the second lien holder. I can't as a Canadian, but our team can in the US. They can go to Bank of America and say, look, you've got a $60,000 second note on this thing. If it goes into foreclosure, you're going to get nothing. And that property gets sold. So we can negotiate them typically down to about 10 cents on the dollar. So we can obtain that property for $6,000, and it might have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of equity. Who'd like to get a property with that much equity for about 6 or 7 grand? Show of hands. Give someone a high five and say, Texas real estate is pretty awesome. Thank you. There's also homeowners associations. You know, a lake community like Mackenzie, you got to pay $150 a year to use the slip and put your boat in and have access to the community center. You know those, right? They exist. You know they exist. There's a lot of them in the U.S. and they are the same way. A year goes by, you didn't pay your HOA, boom, they're going to auction your house to get that $800 back. They're also more expensive in the U.S. And then condo fees. Typically, it's a couple years before a condo board is going to go and fork with one of their homeowners in Canada to recoup those condo fees. But in the U.S., also happens very fast. And of course, you've got your standard plain Jane foreclosure, first mortgage goes into arrears, and we do see those as well. So the great thing about Texas, in tax deeds, is they have a government-mandated 25% return. So the worst thing that happens with one of these deals is in a 6-month period, you make 25% of your money. Who'd be okay with that? A show of hands. Pretty good for a worst-case scenario, don't you think? And this is similar to a foreclosure in Canada insofar as the homeowner gets about a 6-month period to redeem. So they can bail the house out and pay back taxes. But what happens then is they have to pay you 25% penalty over the price you paid, number one. Plus 25% over and above any reasonable renovations you've done to the property to make it clean, safe, and affordable. So you get a 25% bonus on your renovations as well. And you get control of that property from day one. You win it at the auction, you register your $10 deed at the city county office, you take control, you can collect the rent checks, you can renovate, you can do whatever you want with that property. Now, our team works on getting what's called quiet title. So the reason why you have to wait that 6 months if you're going to resell the house is because the banks, they don't want a situation where they give someone a mortgage and then the old homeowner comes out of the woodwork and they bail the house out. They're just not going to allow that to be possible. So they won't give title insurance on a property that's in redemption period. So the longest deal is typically 7 months if you have to wait for redemption. But our team will go to the property, talk to the homeowner and say, listen, your property's going to go to auction. Are you planning on bailing it out? Oh no, I lost my job. Whatever the situation is, they say, okay, great. Would you be willing to sign this affidavit? We give you some money. Because otherwise they get nothing. So you can often talk to these homeowners and negotiate what's called a quiet title. So they sign an affidavit that says they're not going to redeem, and then it's the day you win the property at auction, you can sell it right up to another buyer. They can get title insurance, they can get a bank mortgage, they can do everything that they can on the regular marketplace. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So we work hard to get quiet title. So I'm going to tell you a little story. I used to do this process a lot about 4 years ago. I went down to the auction, I drove around, I did all the due diligence, and I would go to the auctions, and you know those things that are beside bus stops, they've got the free condo views and those free papers? Everybody seen those?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they have those in the US, but bus stops as well, around the auction house, where the properties get put up on the auction block. And people will take this sheet of paper, it's called the green sheet. It has all the properties listed on it. They're going to go up for auction with a starting bid price, what the county thinks it's worth. And they're always wrong. Okay? The county never gets it right, just like City of Calgary is wildly off in their assessments. So they go into the auction and say, wow, this is $1,000. If I buy a $1,000 piece of real estate, how could I lose? So these uneducated people don't drive by the property, they don't do any due diligence, they don't do any homework, and they'll go and buy properties at the auction. I watched this one guy, this one time, I'll draw this, just so you can see it. This property started at $500, okay? And it got bid up to $1,500. It's an auction, he's really excited, yeah, $1,000, $1,100, $1,500 sold. This is what the guy bought. There's a gas station here, there's a cell tower here, there's some kind of business here, and it escapes me what was here. But the property he bought for $1,500 is completely locked in, and it is worth a big fat zero. It is now a liability, not an asset. It's not worth $8, let alone $1,500 that he paid. So this happens all the time. People go into the auction with no education, don't know what they're doing, and they wind up with things like this. There's also some other problems that can be with the property that happen in Texas as well. There's also TV shows that have even gone through, you know, those HGTV shows that show people how to do real estate. They brought all these people through the Houston auction, and they saw all the excitement, and then they're gonna be this guy. They're gonna go in there with no education, no training,